Penguin Random House Audio presents The Yankee Way, the untold inside story of the Brian Cashman era. This is the author, Andy Martino. This book is for Ruby. The story that is always told about the Yankees is wrong. Brian Cashman, Yankees general manager, 1998 to present. Well, why don't I try to get it right? Me to Cashman. Author's note. I have covered New York baseball for more than 15 years, and this book is derived in part from relationships, first-hand observations, and interviews with players, owners, executives, managers, coaches, scouts, and agents conducted along the way. Once I began working in earnest on this project in 2021, Brian Cashman, though we were both clear that this was not his book or a collaboration, did agree to participate in dozens of exclusive interviews on the phone, in his Yankee Stadium office, on the field, in the dugout, and via text message between 2021 and 2023. He only consented to this if I promised to interview many others and not frame this as his book, which was my plan anyway. Some quotes are from an extended interview with Cashman conducted in his office in 2018. Most other sources agreed to on-record interviews, which are identified throughout the text. Certain sources requested anonymity to discuss sensitive matters, also noted throughout the text. The many books and articles cited in the bibliography were also essential in telling this story. Through representatives, Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez declined to be interviewed. Introduction. This game is a monster. Derek Jeter, at 47 years old, maintained the trim physique and imperious gait he had carried since the end of the previous century. On the morning of September 8th, 2021, Jeter strode across the lobby of the Otisaka Resort Hotel in Cooperstown, New York, shoulders back, chin upturned, accompanied by another New York Yankees deity who had never lost confidence, Reggie Jackson. Jackson was nearly 3 decades older than Jeter, but comparably fit and stylish. He expressed his own self-assurance with a smirk that held when he spoke, the corners of his mouth turned slightly down as if permanently amused. He wore glasses with thin frames and had a neatly trimmed mustache. The Otisaka itself was a setting worthy of the Hall of Famers who populated it annually for the induction ceremonies. Built in 1909, it had a lobby that stood between a grand, white-columned entrance in the front and a veranda overlooking Lake Otsego, the water nicknamed Glimmerglass because of its startling ability to refract light in the back. Each year, living Hall of Famers gathered for an exclusive reception on that patio. Standing on the plush rug to the left of the entrance was a man not programmed to notice any of the grandeur around him, but whose mind was forever stuck back in his office or on his phone. Brian Cashman was getting coffee. He was 54 years old, 5'7", bald on top, and hair cropped close on the sides and back. The Yankees, the ball club he had served as general manager since 1998, were near the end of one of the most stressful seasons Cashman had yet endured. The night before, the Toronto Blue Jays had squashed his team 5-1, beating the $324 million ace Garrett Cole and keeping alive the possibility that the Yanks would fail to qualify for the postseason. Game details always rumbled in Cashman's belly. His monotone voice and blank stare hid the inner storm. But it was Cashman's duty to be here in Cooperstown. Stewardship of an iconic franchise carried many responsibilities, including traveling to see the enshrinement of the player who, above all others, defined Cashman's era, no matter how deep the personal disconnect between championship shortstop and championship executive had grown. Standing by his stainless steel coffee urn and taking the first sips of his steaming beverage, Cashman spotted Harold Reynolds, a former big league infielder currently working as a television analyst. The two chatted briefly. Then, Cashman noticed the approach of Jeter and Jackson. "Hey," Jeter said to Cashman, "when you get a chance, can I meet with you for a second?" Now seemed as good a time as any. The two walked away from Jackson and Reynolds and down a hallway. Cashman figured that Jeter, in his current role as CEO of the Miami Marlins, was about to request permission to interview a Yankee executive or coach for a job. Jeter had been hiring Cashman's people since crossing over to management 4 years earlier. But that wasn't it. Not this time. Jeter had a more significant topic on his mind. He wanted, even just for his own sense of peace, a measure of closure. He basically said, "Hey, I just want to thank you for everything you did in my career," Cashman says. "I know we've had issues, but as far as I'm concerned, it's over. I have a whole new appreciation for how things are, being on this side of the fence now, and I want to thank you for everything. As far as I'm concerned, things are cool between us." Jeter's words landed as a pleasant surprise. He and Cashman were titanic figures. One stood with DiMaggio, Mantle, and Berra in Yankee lore. The other was the longest-standing general manager in Yankees history and had overseen the club's final dynasty before the game changed in ways that made a dynasty nearly impossible. They had disagreed in public and private, vented about each other, remembered key events differently. Peace did not seem near. Now, suddenly, finally, they were exhaling together. From my end, I was like, "Listen, dude, I just feel bad because I feel like people were lying to you," Cashman recalled. "And all I ever did was be honest with you. And I feel like a lot of people approach you as a superstar and are not willing to be honest because they're afraid to lose their friendship. But I was going to do my job." Cashman didn't say who was allegedly lying. Details didn't have to be made explicit between these two Yankees luminaries who had been through so much together. "I appreciated it," Cashman later said. "It was a good conversation." It was also a lot to unpack. More than 2 decades of emotional churn, in fact. The characters in Cashman's long story at the helm, some of whom happened to be in that gilded hotel at that very moment, included Joe Torre, Mariano Rivera, Alex Rodriguez, and the late George Steinbrenner. Legends all. But also men with egos and feelings and flaws and roles, and one of contemporary baseball's greatest stories. Men who collaborated on an era of excellence, the likes of which we may never see again. What is a general manager anyway? The year after his chat with Jeter in Cooperstown, Cashman quietly achieved a significant milestone of his own. He passed Ed Barrow as the longest-tenured general manager in the history of the world's most iconic sports franchise. The term general manager in baseball is actually a bit tricky to define. In the modern game, we understand the GM as the person who constructs the team. But in practice, job titles and responsibilities have shifted through years and eras. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, some owners and team presidents like Charles Comiskey of the Chicago White Sox and Barney Dreyfuss of the Pittsburgh Pirates chose the players. In other cases, domineering field managers performed these functions. Think John McGraw of the New York Giants. For much of the 20th and early 21st centuries, general manager became the term of fashion for architects of the roster. So much so that the industry gathering that kicks off every Major League Baseball offseason is called the General Managers Meetings. In recent years, contemporary front offices have added another wrinkle, creating titles like President of Baseball Operations and Chief Baseball Officer. The men who hold those jobs appoint general managers, but those GMs are, in practice, assistants to the presidents and chiefs who typically act as a GM in the way most of us understand the term. The best way to understand this evolving nomenclature is to dive a bit deeper into the structure of a contemporary baseball organization. Directly under the ownership level, there is often a team president. For the Yankees, Randy Levine has served in this role since 2000. Below that sit heads of the various departments: baseball operations, business operations, marketing, communications, and more. Since 1998, Cashman has led the Yankees' baseball operations department. He took the job when the term general manager was standard, and he has kept it. David Stearns, his counterpart for the crosstown New York Mets, entered that organization in 2023 as president of baseball operations. But both Cashman and Stearns were in charge of the Major League roster, the farm system, the manager,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?